sister's a therapist and I tell jokes. We both want to help all kinds of folks.
Hello, and welcome to My Sister's a Therapist. My name is Virginia Jones. I'm a stand-up comedian, and my sister is a therapist.
Hello, I'm Laura Ryan, licensed marriage and family therapist, but my main credit is sister to jokester Virginia Jones.
Congratulations on that.
So what's our topic today, Virginia?
I've been threatening to do this topic for a little while. It's a topic that I've been interested in and that we've touched on accidentally a couple times on the podcast. Today, we're going to talk about Albert Adler and Adlerian Psychology.
Can't wait.
It is interesting, Laura.
I studied it in school, but I've sort of abandoned Albert Adler in the meantime.
He's not as famous as Freud, but I think in some ways his ideas are more day-to-day useful. What brings him into today is that there were two books that did very well in Japan. I've listened to the audio book for both because I could say I've read them, but you know that I haven't.
You are reading it. You're taking in the knowledge in the book. That's reading.
And they are The Courage to be Disliked and The Courage to be Happy by Ichiro Kishimi and Fumitake Koga. These are basically a breaking down of Adlerian philosophy and psychology. So you've heard of Adler because you have a master's degree.
I have a master's degree in counseling. If I had a master's degree in drama, I probably wouldn't have heard of Adler.
I had never heard of him because he doesn't have the, let's say, sex appeal of a Freud.
I think that Freud has a lot of sex appeal, if I'm being honest.
Well, if you say to someone a Freudian slip and edible complex, their ears prick up.
He has a stickiness. I would not call that sex appeal.
They came up at the same time. Alfred Adler was an Austrian medical doctor in psychotherapy. And people said later, oh, aren't you a follower of Freud's? Aren't you a student of Freud's? And he said, no, we are peers. Early in their careers, they collaborated and talked together about stuff. And later, Freud didn't like him very much. In the early 1930s, Adler left Austria and moved to the US due to his Jewish heritage.
I wonder what the connection is there.
I don't know what was happening in Europe in the 30s that would lead someone to leave Austria, but that's exactly what happened.
Just as an aside, I wonder to myself if leaving Austria might have been part of the reason why he doesn't have that staying power that Freud had, because he wasn't in the mix.
I think that that's probably true, but I also think his Jewishness at the time
precluded him from
had
a lot.
as much to do with it. After Adler died, Freud maintained his distaste for him. His quote is, he was talking to a friend, "I don't understand your sympathy for Adler. For a Jewish boy out of a Viennese suburb, a death in Aberdeen is an unheard of career in itself."
Wow. Giving me another reason to hate Freud. I'm the head of the Freud hater club.
He said the world really richly rewarded him for his service in having contradicted psychoanalysis. So Adler had a couple ideas that very distinctly contradicted Freud. And so,
right. So he diverged. And so Freud said, well, if you're not going to get with the program, I don't even want to know you. Pulled a real Mariah Carey. I don't know her. Who's that?
The word that really ties Adler's philosophy together is a word we use all the time, Gemeinschaftsgefühl.
Yeah, it's basically like saying voila. You know, we just brought it into the American zeitgeist.
Yeah, because we say it all the time. It's basically how the individual feels a sense of worth because of family and societies. His main idea was that all problems are relationship problems. All problems have to do with personal relationships.
Absolutely.
We talked about him in the birth order episode. He himself had an older brother and felt that he was overlooked and felt that he was ignored by his parents and he was at a disadvantage. He felt that that idea affected his whole life. So he thought that birth order was very important in people's development. He also had this theory that different members of a family would specialize in different things in order to get attention. So the baby would specialize in being an extrovert and being really good with people because they have all these people above them. And the eldest specialized in being a little adult and taking care of others. And the middle child, like yourself, would specialize in negotiation and smoothing a rough patch. Our whole goal is to feel significant and that people will take different paths. One of the more challenging parts of Adlerian psychology is that he did not believe that trauma forms us for the rest of our life.
Right. This is the point where he lost me as a fan. Because it goes completely against everything I believe. I mean, not everything. I do believe in those other things. I do feel like our family of origin shapes how we relate to the world and how we think and feel about ourselves. It shapes our career paths. It shapes our future relationships. trauma is inherent in life for most people, and it affects everything that we do.
His discussion about trauma is that if someone is traumatized and they say, hey, I can't do this thing, or I can't try this thing, I can't achieve this because of my trauma, that smacks of determinism, which is the doctrine that all events are predetermined. It is to say that your life can be ruined by something that you didn't do, but that has affected you every day. If the things that happen to you, you have no control over, and you don't have control over your life, and you don't have control over anything that happens after, you don't have free will.
To say that when terrible things happen to me, they're not going to affect me, that doesn't make any sense.
I agree with you that I think trauma has some impact, but I think it's an idea worth exploring. So
I would say untreated trauma, if I do nothing to work on it, absolutely, it's going to affect my entire life. If I work on it and try to get my hands around it, it's going to be different.
I'm going to do a quick run through things that were important in his psychology. So we're not going to be able to cover every part of Adler's ideas, but I want to hit a couple points that I find interesting. Community feelings, social interests, he thought was super important. And when I think about that, I think about the television show, The Last Man on Earth, the idea that without other people to share experiences with, nothing has any value. This individual had his run of the world and had collected all of these works of art and all these valuable objects.
He was living in a fancy house and he had all the capitalistic goals.
He had everything he thought he wanted.
Except people. That's why he had the room full of volleyball head people and tennis ball head people.
And had a conversation with a mannequin.
Remember he made a bar for the tennis ball heads? That's very weird.
Really sad. But I think in capitalism, we think that these things have value in of themselves.
Inherently.
And they do not. They only have value because of what other people place on them.
I think also when you have relationships with other people, having a giant pool in your backyard is not going to be fun if you're just by yourself all the time, but it will be fun if you invite friends over.
Yeah.
I think some of these capitalist hashtag goals, when I got my first yacht, it was fun because all of my friends and family came on it.
Dostoevsky said, money is coined liberty.
Dostoevsky also said, let's date 12-year-olds.
Dostoevsky also said, I got mad and I killed that guy. But money is not in of itself valuable.
It doesn't contain inherent value.
No. In Adler's ideas, money is just something to impress other people or to prove your worth to other people.
I think that's a very male-centric POV.
He was also super interested in inferiority, superiority, and compensation, hierarchies, birth order that we've already talked about. He was interested in conscious and unconscious realms and neuroses. He was also very interested in Socratic questions. Socratic questioning is the thing that makes every toddler intolerable.
And some 10-year-olds that live with you.
And everything's just more why, until you get down to the core of human nature.
Which is, I don't know why planets are floating. I am not a scientist.
I can't tell you the sky is blue. I think something to do with light and water.
Maybe gas.
There's gases at places. Socratic questioning reminds me of that thing where you fold a piece of paper and you fold it and you fold it and fold it and you can't do the last fold because the last fold is this wallet of paper.
Yes, that's why do I have to go to school? Because
it's
you
the
need
law.
to get an education, right? So what we landed on in the end after 20 minutes of this discussion is I don't want to be judged by society and I don't have the time and energy to educate you myself.
And I want you to have a place in society and you will need education on some level to get to that place. One of the main ideas of Adler is teleology. That is a word that means two things are related, but not in the way that you think they are. One of the examples is a guy's in a coffee shop, a waiter spills coffee on him, and he says, and I got very angry and I screamed at the waiter. Adler would believe that you're choosing to get angry, that anger is a tool. And it's something you talked with people a lot about.
Mostly men.
You've chosen to get angry because you wanted to make this waiter submit to you.
I think it's more you're having an experience. You have coffee in your lap. You're uncomfortable. It's unpleasant. You're not sure what to do with those feelings. And so you're just sparking anger because you feel jarred, you feel uncomfortable, you feel unhappy. It feels like an injustice has been done. And it's okay to have those feelings. I think the choice comes in where I choose to scream at the waiter.
I choose to, in public, scream at a stranger to make a big show of my anger and my power and how scary I am and make everybody
uncomfortable.
Another of his big ideas that we've also talked about in a roundabout way is inferiority complex, superiority complex, and compensation. Adler would say, and I think you would agree with this, someone who has an inferiority complex doesn't feel that they can do anything, is always unsure of themselves, has maybe had some life experiences where they felt overlooked or they felt not chosen or they felt criticized. They're not able to have relationships. They're not able to live the life that they want to live. Incels come to mind.
It's arriving at these conclusions because I think it's normal to feel inferior in the society, especially if you're a man. But there's just a lot of mental leaps that happen for incels that I don't think are necessary. To me, that's where the choice comes in.
That you're just choosing again and again to say, if women valued me, I would have value, and I'm angry.
Because I'm entitled, which I think is also a choice to feel entitled to things.
Yes, yes. Then you've also got superiority complex. And this is the person who boasts all the time and talks about their yacht, all the things they have and all the things they've done, all the fame.
I mean, that was just a casual aside. I'm a yacht owner. What's the big
bringing up a yacht out of nowhere? Out of nowhere. It is a very nice yacht.
It seats 100, so it's pretty exciting.
Remind me what you've named your yacht.
Little Annie, because there's Big Annie. She lives in Barbados.
Oh, Little Annie is just your knock around local.
She was the first yacht. Big Annie was the one I got a couple years later.
Got it. As someone with a superiority complex, talking all the time about Big Annie and Little Annie, and someone doing a lot of the things that I do, talking about stuff they're doing and people they've met and stuff they're achieving, has a superiority complex, which is still inferiority, right?
That is 100% an inferiority complex. Because why do I feel the need to share with others all the time how great I am? It's because I don't personally, on some level, believe that I am that great.
And then the third prong to this that we've talked about is the personality that is always having the worst time, who has always been betrayed the worst, has had the hardest life, had the worst upbringing. If you tell them, oh, I'm so sorry, I can see how bad that is for you, they'll say, you have no idea. You have no idea how bad it's been for me. You can't understand it all. I'm miserable. This person is also experiencing an inferiority complex, but they're trying to make themselves special with how unhappy they are.
And both of these people are also experiencing the cluster B.
Adler's idea about what ties these all together is that they're all people who are justifying not being in relationships, especially the compensator. They're trying to find reasons not to be in relationships. No one could possibly love me. I'm so messed up because my dad didn't get me the tap shoes I wanted, and kids at school made fun of me because I didn't have the right tap shoes, et cetera, et cetera.
I call it the guess I'll go eat worms syndrome. I have tried this out with a lot of specifically men. Men come into my office with this story of nobody likes me, everybody hates me. Guess I'll go eat worms. The women on the apps don't like me. I can't find the right job. I don't have any friends. And the problem with this mindset or mentality, everything is focused outward. None of it is focused inward. Right. That's where we run into trouble. So a lot of this mindset creates a scenario where I'm trying to solve for other people and I cannot do that.
I see this personality in women a lot. I'm so messed up. All these terrible things have happened to me. I agree that we all have trauma, and trauma can be a big mover of our lives and a big shaper of it. But to say there's no getting around it, there's nothing I can do about it, is to get back to determinism, that my life is miserable because things have happened to me and I'm never going to be anything but miserable.
It's self-centeredness.
It's self-centeredness, but it's also fear. To try to have relationships is fear to try to relate to other people. And you're going to keep yourself very safe and protected if you just say, well, nobody likes me and I'll just be in the corner with my can of worms. A lot of Adler's ideas are around fear and about the things we'll do to not think about the thing we don't want to think about. One example is the guy who says he wants to write a book, and we can say the guy or gal.
The person
who says, I want to write a book, but I'm just so dang busy with work, I can't write it.
This is feeling personal.
And then as years go by and they still aren't writing this book, they'll say, well, I have a family now. I have responsibilities, or I'm getting older now. I can't possibly. But what have they achieved by spending their whole life not doing this thing they say they want to do? They never have to be judged for the book. They never have to be criticized.
Well, they never have to fail.
The Irish comedian Dylan Moran had a bit that I saw him do one time 10 years ago that has stuck with me. You never actually want to look at your own potential. It's going to be a little grimier and smaller. It's better to just leave your potential in a closet and not look at it.
You won't have to confront yourself.
You won't have to accept I have limitations.
It's like those old fat guys who watch football games and say, that could have been me if I had that hamstring injury.
Right. I could do his job if only I wasn't stuck making canary hats in Peoria.
I was going to say, working at the Winn-Dixie.
If only I didn't have to clock in at the Winn-Dixie, I could do that 10 times better than that guy is doing it. We all walk around with this idea that our potential is this just untapped gold mine. And we've talked about it before in the way that people think there's some talent that they have that they just haven't tapped into yet. And as soon as they figure out what that is, they'll be really good at it without working or trying very hard.
Have you ever seen the show The Big Door Prize with Chris O'Dowd, another Irish funnyman?
No.
It's a really interesting show, but the premise is that this weird machine shows up in this little town and it comes from nowhere. And when you go and sit down in this machine, a little card comes out and it tells you what your potential is. And so all of these people in this little town are doing these bizarre, one guy was running the country store and he decides he's a magician or because of this card. Another person decides that he's going to become a cowboy because of that. It's all these people who have this untapped potential that's just being discovered for them. And most of them are really bad at whatever the thing is. Mostly what it's doing is these people are having to face these things that you're talking about. Because I can have this perception of myself in a certain way when it's never been tested. There's a psychological term for it called the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's a cognitive bias that leads me, a person with low ability or knowledge in a particular area, to overestimate my own competence. So I think when I'm watching this football game where this coach who has been picked by the NFL and has 50 years of experience,
has been working in this field his whole life,
that I, the bagger at Winn-Dixie, knows better. I encountered it recently when I was doing my NET certification. I thought, oh yeah, I'm totally going to be super chill with this final exam. It's going to be no sweat.
Oh my God.
And it was a lot of sweat.
You were really sweating it. And I was trying to talk you down and saying, you worked really hard on this. You're really good at this. And you're like, other people work harder.
I was not wrong. That was hard AF. But at the front end of the whole thing, they talked about the test. And I was like, oh, yeah, I've got this. I'm a great learner. I'm an excellent test taker. No, I'm not.
As opposed to our most recently published episode, Gifted and Talented.
Right. It was confirmed because I haven't taken a huge exam like that in so many years that I've forgotten.
We all experience it. What's holding me back from setting swimming records like Michael Phelps, I think it's probably the suit. If I had the right swimsuit.
Yes. If I put a little elbow grease and a little time in.
If I worked up for a couple weeks, I could probably compete in the Olympics.
Because when I stand side by side with Michael Phelps, we practically have the same body.
We have the same body type. I'm born to do this.
Yes. I have the lung capacity like he does. I have the long, sinewy arms and legs.
I have the reach when I get in the pool.
And
I reach, I'm pretty much at the end of it.
Just as an aside, did you see Snoop Dogg swimming with Michael Phelps?
No, I didn't.
They're a similar height, but not a similar build or athletic ability. It was kind of interesting to watch Snoop.
This is someone who's really good at rapping, and being high with Martha Stewart looks like
what he looks like in the pool. He was basically doggy paddling. I mean, he was doing okay, but it was kind of a no competition situation. I'm imagining that Snoop, maybe before he got in the pool, he's like, you know what? I've swum. I can do this.
Other things we talked about on the podcast are that something like 17% of men surveyed thought that they could probably take Serena Williams in a tennis match. Like probably.
I get that. She's weak. She doesn't have any coordination. And I feel like that's the problem, ultimately, that's going to take her down.
Yeah. She's not strong and she doesn't have very excellent motor skills.
No. And she doesn't have any kind of skill set or training that makes her excel in this field.
What you're forgetting is that she's a woman.
Oh, right.
If you're a man, you can beat any woman at anything.
And if you're wondering about that, you should refer back to our episode, The
Battle
Battle
of
of
the
the Sexes.
If you have never heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect before today, and the next week you notice it comes up in conversation a lot, then you're having the Baader-Meinhof effect about the Dunning-Kruger effect.
And if you're curious about Baader-Meinhof, refer back to our episode called Pop Psychology.
We're coming up on a year of podcasts, and I hope that one day we'll address all things to all people. We'll be like the Encyclopedia Britannica of mental health and social wellness.
Well, I kind of already feel that way because every time I'm working with a client, I would say 99.5%, I will say, hey, this topic is covered in an episode of my podcast.
Another interesting example of Adler's teleology theory is a story they tell in the book, The Courage to be Disliked, is about a woman who's like, I have a crush on a guy, but I'm afraid that if I talk to him, I'll start blushing. So I can't talk to him. And so I need you to help me with my blushing. And this is someone who would come to you for hypnosis.
Yeah, this is one of my other things that I do. The way that I treat it, and this is probably Adlerian by design, the method that I use when someone is trying to stop blushing is to tell them to try to blush more. I remember a woman in the past, it was always during social situations that she would really bloom to see if you can make your face as red as a light, like a stoplight. Try to see if the glow off your face is going to light the room up. Mm-hmm. She would get really sweaty. So I was like, try to see if you can like sweat out your clothes right now and see if you will pass out from how hot you are. Because the way that the brain works is if I'm trying not to do something, it's going to make it all the worse. But if I just allow it, it'll just happen. The analogy I use is laughing in church. I remember some of the best laughs I've ever had with you and my other siblings happened during the hours of 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. on a Sunday in the Mormon church. Yeah, you're not supposed to. And so the idea of trying to repress a feeling makes the opposite happen.
That was something George Carlin said as well, that the best laughs he ever got were when he was being a class clown in Catholic school, because it was the most taboo.
Yeah.
It was the very worst possible.
Yeah, the more I try to fight something, the more it's going to happen.
The blushing that this woman is afraid of is a defense because she doesn't want to talk to the guy because she doesn't want to be rejected.
She doesn't want attention to be brought to her because people might find out that she's really stupid and boring. That's her belief, right? Not my belief about her. She was a perfectly delightful woman.
A lot of this philosophy has to do with protecting yourself from the thing you want.
Protecting yourself from failure at getting the thing you want.
People will have very complicated reasons and say, well, I couldn't possibly because of this and this and this, but it's because they want to be relieved of the responsibility of trying.
And be able to settle into mediocrity.
In which they're not happy either. The roadblock you're putting in the way of yourself and the thing you think you want is protecting you from trying, but it's also protecting you from achieving or succeeding.
It's protecting you from lots of feelings. I remember a client I had in the past was coming to me for weight loss. She had had an experience of sexual assault when she was thinner, and so she put on a lot of weight. She was saying, well, I'm protecting myself from being assaulted. And I'm like, well, you're not really, because we still live in a world where men live. But you are protecting yourself from other things like finding a partnership. You're protecting yourself from having longevity in life. You're protecting yourself from feeling good in your clothes. There's a lot of things you're also protecting yourself from that you probably don't want to.
Yes, she thought she was protecting herself from unwanted attention from men, but she was also protecting herself from wanted attention from men.
Yeah.
Another thing that Adler talks about that I've been thinking about lately is the tendency to find corroborating evidence. A woman is in a relationship with a man. They've been together for years. And all of a sudden, the way he chews starts making her insane. The way he snores drives her crazy. 1,000 things.
The way he leaves crumbs behind.
The way he leaves crumbs on the floor. Adler would say, these things are not what is bothering her. On some level, she has decided to end the relationship and she is starting to gather evidence.
And she's too cowardly to be honest with herself.
She's too cowardly to be honest with herself. She's too cowardly to be honest with your partner. This is why people say things like, and she broke up with me because I went to a basketball game. No, she didn't.
She broke up with me because of the sock.
The socks are just something she found that enabled her to get her desired ends without having to have a real conversation. And that's having to say something hard like, I don't feel safe with you, or you don't respect me. You don't respect me. What is the real reason? It's much easier to find another little thing. Immediately after you've broken up with someone or ended a friendship or left a job, it's very hard for you to think positive things about that person or situation. Because then your brain will go like, well, was that the right thing? You'll start to question yourself. A human tendency is, to just find corroborating evidence. I recently changed my whole life, not my whole life, but I changed towns, I changed
You're
jobs.
wearing that wooden leg now.
I got a wooden leg. I didn't need it, but I said, this is who I want to be. I want to be a peg leg sailor. I'm tired of being judged. But when I changed cities, even though the city I came from, LA, I really loved and I really had a great experience there, but I started finding things that I didn't like about it. And I started meeting people who had also left Los Angeles and having conversations about what we didn't like about it. I don't want to be wrong. I don't want to find that I regret my decision.
We have to create a negative bias
Right.
because you have to justify your own life.
Do I agree with everything Adler said? No. He had a lot of problems with homosexuality. Now, given that it was 1917, he considered homosexuality as a failure of life.
We did not learn that in school.
Because being a straight cis man, he did think that the ultimate relationship was between a man and a woman. And he thought that homosexuality was a lack of courage because you're getting a physical release while avoiding the greater obligation, the life task of a marriage and relationship. And this is how people have talked about homosexuality through the 50s and 60s. It's just physical. They're not having a deeper relationship. They don't have maybe the capacity to have an actual deep human relationship, which absolutely is not true.
I was just listening to Why Won't You Date Me with Nicole Byer, and the guest is Akeem Woods, and he was talking about how he had literally just had intercourse with a man, and they were having a conversation afterwards, and the man said, well, what are you, gay? And he was like, well, I just anally penetrated you, so I'm going to go ahead and go with yes.
Yeah.
And the guy was
both
like,
of us might be gay.
no. And the guy said, I'm not gay. He said, I'm married. Well, you might want to, investigate.
You might want to think about that a little bit.
A little bit more.
Later, when you're in the shower, you might think about, could I be gay?
What does this mean?
What does this mean about myself? It's because that guy doesn't think that homosexual relationships are
real. He's like
real,
Adler in that way.
Yeah, he's like, no, this is just sex.
Well, he said, I have a wife. And he's like, well, then you're bi. No, I'm not. Okay, buddy.
All right, have fun. There was another story on the same tip later in his life. His attitude started to shift. He was talking with a social worker in New York, talking about a young couple and saying a young man was living in sin with an older man in New York City. And Adler asked her, well, would you say he's happy? And she said, yes. And he said, well, why don't we leave him alone? Ultimately, what he wanted for everybody was to be happy, to find happiness. He thought that that was the purpose of being alive.
Even if you're in a sham relationship, as long as you're happy.
If you're a sham relationship. Adler was also the first psychologist to argue in favor of feminism in the way back.
Wow. Who knew?
That power dynamics between men and women are crucial to understanding human psychology and that women are actually worth the same.
Wait, what?
I know. In the 30s, he knew this. Why didn't he tell more people?
He probably told a lot of people, but a lot of people were not interested in that opinion.
The last two things I want to talk about in Adler that I really agree with, he talks about the separation of tasks. And that just means don't worry about things you can't control. And that extends to don't worry what other people think about you because you cannot control what people think about you. It's not your job to please everyone. It's not your job to ingratiate yourself to everyone.
That's what I feel like I'm saying in my office every day. It's okay if people don't like you. It's okay if people think you're weird. It has nothing to do with you. And the question that I ask people when they say, well, everyone has to like me, I say, do you like everyone?
Right. And no,
of course you don't. We're not all for each other.
On the last idea of finding corroborating evidence, there was also an example in the book of a person doesn't like someone that they're in competition with. And they say, well, he's slovenly. He doesn't speak well. He's unkind. And his doctor's like, isn't it just because you're in competition with him and you're finding these negative things about him? No.
That's a coincidence.
That's just a coincidence that I perceive myself to be in competition with this person at work or for professional things or in a relationship. And they happen to be a giant a-hole and I can't stand anything about them.
It's just a weird thing that worked out that way.
The core of Adler is that happiness is not just in relationships, but in contribution to feel like you're part of society, you have something to contribute to the community, you have a role to play. And we've talked about that's a part of growing old gracefully, feeling that you have a community and feeling that you're making a contribution to the community. And then I think the most challenging part in a capitalist hellscape is the idea of horizontal relationships, which means nobody is above me and nobody is below me. We are all people. Adler was the first psychologist who would, instead of having a chair and a divan or a sofa, he just had 2 chairs in his office because he wanted to promote, we're just the same.
And I have found in my therapeutic relationships that people are sort of taken aback when I tell them about all of my problems.
Because you're supposed to be perfect.
Right. And what I say is, I'm just a person like you. You're not better than me. I just went to school for longer. Maybe I'm better at running a professional counseling business.
I've experienced at it.
But ultimately, yeah, we are peers in life.
I do struggle with horizontal relationships, but I want to look at everything that way. That even if my boss needs to manage me and needs information from me, she's not better than me. Even if someone has more success in comedy, that just means that they do. I'm not going to treat them particularly well, but I'm not going to treat them particularly badly because it's not my role to do that.
So in my weekly reference to the book, I Survived Capitalism and All I Got Was This Lousy T-shirt by Madeline Pendleton.
Thank you, Madeline Pendelton. You've really changed this woman's life.
You really greatly affect the podcast. I finished the book, so I may not reference it every other week, but she was talking about her company and she was talking about how she met a business person in a bar and he was talking about how he ran a company. And she said everybody in her staff, including her, gets the same amount of money. Everybody gets the same amount of, when they make a profit, they all split it. They do profit sharing. And so this guy was saying, well, that's wrong. He was saying, well, if somebody has like a higher level of education, they should be paid more than the receptionist. And she said, well, can you run the business without the receptionist? And he said, no. And she said, well, then everybody's the same.
Wow.
Right. That really took me for a loop. Like, oh, wow, she does have a point. We are all essential to make this thing run. So we're all peers.
If you weren't essential, you wouldn't be there.
So this guy was running a landscaping company and she said, but you don't do any landscaping. And he said, no. She said, well, don't you need the landscapers to run the company? Well, yeah. Then why do you pay them less than other people? Because you cannot do it without them. We are all essential in this system. And I think if you look at everybody that way, it makes life a lot easier.
I think that Madeline has a lot of intersection with Adlerian psychology.
And also I found out on a TikTok today that the TikTok topic was, why do autistic people get fired from jobs? And one of them was that they don't recognize hierarchy as autistic people. And Madeline is an autistic person.
I have gotten fired from a job for not recognizing hierarchy as well. Laura, what are your final thoughts on this topic and my general interest in Alfred Adler?
I'm intrigued by your general interest in Alfred Adler because I've never had that much interest in him. I basically learned enough about him to be able to pass a quiz or test, but hadn't done a lot of deep diving. It is really interesting to me that in 1917, this man was preaching a lot of the tenets of psychotherapy now. If you're curious about it, you should listen to Lego My Imago. But in Imago relationship therapy, that's all it's about. It's about connection. It's about relationships. It's about how everything goes back to our role in our family of origin. I'm sure that Harville Hendricks based a lot of his ideas off of Adlerian psychology. I only ever have thought about Adler in connection to his work in schizophrenia. It's really interesting to think about how much he's done and how he wasn't as niche as I thought. There's a lot more to him. I'm also very interested in the feminist perspective. That's very unusual for a man of that time, especially a German man. You know what Germans are like.
Austrian, please.
Oh, sorry. Well, besides Falco, I'm not interested in Austrians. So... Oh my gosh, have we talked about Dad this episode?
Not till now.
Oh no.
Oh no. I'm sorry, everybody.
You've been holding your shot of Jägermeister this whole episode, waiting. Probably Dad would have liked Adler.
I think he might have.
Virginia, what are your final thoughts on this topic?
Well, since you brought up Falco, I have to bring up that a friend of mine was in Austria and he just happened to be in town for this musical about Austrian musicians. Basically, a direct line between Mozart and Falco.
That's legit.
You know, Falco couldn't have existed without Mozart, and they were pretty much the same.
I would love to go back to 1980, 1981 and go to a Falco concert. I think it would be probably the highlight of my life.
Oh, it would be the bomb.
It would be the greatest thing ever. He's so incredible. Anyway, he's something.
Well, you know, we've both learned something about each other. You learned that I have been focusing on Alfred Adler, and I've learned that you have a really outsized appreciation for the music of Falco.
I don't think outsized is the word I would use to describe it.
Kiss it up to Falco.
Rest in power, Falco.
Yeah.
When we look at our ideal man, it's
right.
Falco.
It's Falco. It's Falco. Well, and it's also the guy from Spandau Ballet,
Yes, I think I said
the hot
your
twin.
TikTok. There's a specific type of man that I like. He was very popular in around 1983. He was a tall brunette man, slender, very well dressed. Virginia, in closing, what are your final thoughts?
I'm glad I finally got to this episode, and I appreciate your observation that Adler, even though he was not that famous in his time and has kind of been buried by history, that his ideas are a lot more useful and a lot more prominent today than Freud.
Who thought that a painting of a child holding a lamb was a child and wanted to have sex with a lamb.
Wanted to have sex with that lamb. God bless him. We talked about Freud in an earlier episode that we cut this bit out because you told me things that were very unpleasant. But the whole reason for Freud's theories came out of his shock that society women, well-to-do women, had been essayed by family members. And he said they have to be making it up.
Well, he didn't say that.
Oh.
His peers said that. So he reported to other therapists in his field and they said, oh, well, there's no way.
Right.
There's no way
that could be true.
That, not that it couldn't be true, that the volume of reports were what they were. They were saying that there's no way that could be true. It's a once in a while thing. It's not a 18 times a day of your clients situation.
You know what my final thoughts are? Alles klar, Herr Kommissar. Oh, here's something we can say about our dad. Our dad spoke German, and for a while, every time he turned on his computer, a sexy lady voice would say, Guten Morgen, Herr Director, which is like, good morning, boss.
I don't remember that. I'm glad I've wiped that one from the hard drive.
Yeah, you might not have ever been exposed to it. Something that happened. Thanks, Dad. Laura, this is the part of the show where sometimes you read a review from a listener. Do you have anything to share with us this week?
I absolutely do. This review is from capital R, lowercase a, capital S, lowercase h, 2448. So we're going to say, Rasha, as someone who just played golf for the first time, I think you can draw your own conclusions here. I really appreciated your episode on Mayo culture. A hilarious and relatable take backed with evidence and impacts. Really makes you take a moment to reflect and consider the implications and the lessons to be applied. You both are great. Thank you so much, Rasha2448.
Thank you, Rasha. We appreciate you.
And it sounds like you're white because you're playing golf.
One can only assume.
Hey, Virginia, if anyone's trying to look at your comedy and learn more about you, how would they go about doing that?
Thank you so much for asking. You can find me at www.badinia.com. My TikTok is on Badinia and my Instagram is also Badinia. I keep a calendar on badinia.com. If you're a Portlander and looking to see a show, you probably can. Laura, where can people find you on the internet?
Well, they can find me on my TikTok account. I am Laura Ryan. They can also find me on my professional website, lauraryan.org. They can also find me on Instagram. It's actually both of us. My Sister's a Therapist Instagram page. We also have a website, mysistersatherapist.com. And if you ever want to reach out to the show and tell us how great we are and send us Starbucks gift cards, you can do so at hello@mysistersatherapist.com. If you're looking for support on your bar mitzvah or your women's leadership conference or your wellness event or somewhere else, you can hire us at mysistersatherapist.com.
I would like to say I would prefer an Amazon gift card to a Starbucks gift card. And we would like to petition again. We are available for sponsorship from Liquid Death and Waterloo Sparkling Waters. We will promote the crap out of your product.
In the immortal words of one of the great philosophers of our time, Billy Ray Valentine, Capricorn, we can make it, baby.
Me and you.
Bye-bye.